As Chesterfield County communities continue to grow, the need to build new schools becomes a task for our school board. At the same time, the school board has to be mindful regarding maintaining our existing 65 school facilities. This requires strategic planning, approving locations, and managing the budget for renovation or new construction. Current construction projects are associated with the 2013 school board bond referendum that Chesterfield County voters overwhelmingly approved. Whether you are a parent, family member, or resident who benefits from the strong public education system in Chesterfield County, the classrooms of the future are being designed and built and implemented today. Joining us on Engage Chesterfield are CCPS school board members, Mr. John Urbach, representing the Dale District, and Mrs. Carrie Coiner, representing the Bermuda District, to discuss the process and the planning of the upcoming new school construction projects in Chesterfield County. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
So the current projects that we're working on are part of the 2013 bond referendum. Can you share what some of those projects are?
Sure. So the bond referendum originally called for 4 buildings to be new construction. Those were 4 elementary schools, 3 replacement buildings, 1 that would be what's now going to be Old 100 Elementary School, 4 renovation elementary school projects, and 2 middle school renovation projects. Now, this school board has looked at things a little differently and decided to pivot all of the renovation projects to be new construction, because when we looked at the value over time, it really made a lot more sense for the community. It also helped feed in equity, that everyone, no matter what part of the county you live in, is getting a facility that really makes sense in the modern education.
And probably a better product in the end. So a question for both of you. All of the schools are the same design, same templates being used. Can you speak to why we've decided to go with this method?
So when you look at a prototype, we're able to save a lot of money. We're able to build a lot faster, more efficiently. We're also able to ensure that there is equity, that we don't give one community something more or less than another. And it also, I think, increases our competitive bidding process. You know, when we look at how many people are willing to bid for our projects, when it's a project that you've been able to see has been successful, that people have been able to build it within the budget that was allocated, you end up with more bidders, which also saves more money. So overall, that process is extremely important, that use of a prototype. And our community, it was so nice walking into Beulah. Enon families came to Beulah. They were able to see their future school. So the energy for your own community getting a school, you can see and walk into the projects that have already been built. So I think it's really important for our community. They can see what's coming. You know exactly what you have to look forward to.
And to Ms. Coiner's point about the savings that we've been able to see during the bidding process, you know, with Beulah we saved about $1.2 million. Enon is still wrapping up, but it looks like it's going to be well over $2 million in savings. And I think part of that is because those in the construction industry have confidence in the project. They've seen it done. They've seen that we know that we can get value out of these projects. So that's a great thing. But as far as folks just getting to go and see the building, I think as new development over decades has fueled growth, you tend to see the newer, nicer schools sometimes in one part of the county. And we're finding a way to get around that, make sure that no matter what part of the county you live in, you're getting the same product that folks on the other side of the county are getting.
We're investing in all of Chesterfield County.
That's right.
And so you spoke a little bit about equity when you were speaking to why we chose to rebuild. Is there anything else you'd like to add with really the benefit that has, the impact on what our schools have, our students have opportunities for?
Sure. Just having a new building in and of itself is a great equity issue, but also the new tools. All of our new buildings are outfitted with technology that makes it where all students, it's especially an enhancement. I enjoyed going into Enon and see the training for teachers with students with disabilities. The things that a new building allow you the flexibility for the learning space and the learning experience. Looking at in terms of equity from a teacher perspective, especially in a school that's almost 100 years old, the things you're unable to do to the inefficiencies of your classroom and the way classrooms were built to serve the way teaching was done many, many decades ago looks very different today. So going in and seeing the new spaces, and it's a much more efficient way to use our buildings.
And we've been at the different events when we've done the ribbon cutting, and the community is so excited. They just are, people that don't even have kids in schools, it means that you're investing where I live. So that, I think, has a really positive benefit. You were talking, Mr. Urbach, about the learning environment and how these schools have been strategically chosen, these designs, to really foster really innovative learning. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, some of it goes to academics and some of it goes to safety. With respect to safety, there's certain aspects of the design that help give the administrators and the teachers an ability to really control the flow through the school building. Even just when the kids get out at the end of the school day and are fed over to the bus loop, it's sort of a one-way path so that everyone kind of knows which direction you're going. It protects the students from the elements by giving them some shelter as they're waiting for the bus. But also the administrators will all have the ability to lock down the school with the push of a button, which really, I think, should give parents a lot of confidence that we're looking at ways to improve safety with this design. But from an academic standpoint, Ms. Coiner already kind of alluded to this, schools built 100 years ago didn't address a lot of the same needs we're dealing with now. A good example of that is special education. If you have a special education classroom or a smaller classroom of 8 students, maybe 10 students, you don't need to utilize the same amount of space that you would for 30 students. So one thing this design has done is it's incorporated a few smaller classrooms that are designed for some of those special programs so that it uses the space in a way that's more consistent with how we use space today in education.
I think that it's really exciting when you say that, because when you look at our classrooms, and it was just really so, going and touring one of the buildings, if you've not done it, you should. But you think of the strategic thought and work that's been put into these rebuilds and how we've utilized the funding from the bond referendum, making sure that we're balancing enrollments and providing equitable opportunities to learn, and the decision to renovate or rebuild, I think really and truly speaks to the commitment of the school board to use funds wisely. Any other thoughts on that, or just in terms of that decision, where we're going with it?
I think it's important, when you look at, when we as a board looked at our original path of renovations versus new construction, you really have to look long term and see, how you invest today and the impact on your ability to do other things going forward in the future, and the best use of those dollars. And it became very clear in looking at the renovation versus rebuild that in these particular groups of schools, we were in a place where it made more sense to rebuild. Now, we have a very aggressive major maintenance program that's coming up, where we hope to not be in this place ever again as a community. We inherited decades of lack of maintenance. We have an amazing major maintenance program getting ready to be launched, where you'll see a cycle of all of our buildings being well maintained, well cared for, on a cycle based on the lifespan of the units that are operating within it. And so I think county residents, in looking at that major maintenance program, can feel assured that your tax dollars are being used to preserve our resources and our buildings we already have that are still in good shape. There's nothing wrong with a good quality older building, but that we are also ensuring that our older buildings that are at the point they can no longer be brought up to speed and maintained, we're going to address that through construction.
One other aspect to that is the fact that when we first came on this board, the school system really didn't feel like it had the capacity to do too many construction projects at once. And there were some changes in our thinking in terms of utilizing an outside vendor who would provide the construction management. Right now, Chesterfield, and there are different points, but Chesterfield's undertaking really 10 construction projects at once. There's not a lot of school divisions in the Commonwealth that have done that successfully. And as we're seeing them come to fruition, we're seeing them come to fruition successfully. Some of these projects have been built in as few as 15, 16 months. Again, that's a rare thing to find.
That is on time and under budget, which is
Right.
nice. So that's exciting. So this is 2013 bond referendum. Is there another bond referendum on the horizon? Where do you see this going?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously that's early in the planning stages, but we are starting to look at some of the needs. Some of it's driven by growth. Some of it's also driven by some of the maintenance needs that Ms. Coiner just touched on. If we look at a building and we're confident that it's a building that's going to need to be replaced in 5 or 10 years, that changes your thinking with respect to how much maintenance you're going to do. You're not going to do the 20 or 25-year investment into the building if you know that the right thing to do ultimately is to retire that building and build something new. So we're starting to look at that, the potential for the next bond referendum, so that it informs some of our decisions today, so that we make best use of those tax dollars.
It is.
We're also working on, looking at, in terms of equity, we went ahead and moved forward as a board outside of the bond referendum project with Matoaka Middle School, for example, that broke ground last week. That project is moving forward to make Matoaka Middle School one campus instead of two. That's an equity issue. Trying to get all of our schools where they're under one roof is important. We know that it's important for teachers not traveling between buildings, as well as students, and safety. And so those are, that's an example of something outside of the bond referendum. And I think as we develop our list, we'll be out talking with the community, looking at the major maintenance list that's been provided to us, and especially listening to the community. So
It certainly is exciting. Thank you so much for sharing your time and expertise with us today, and thank you for joining us on Engage Chesterfield.